Hey everybody, Bonehead from the Bonehead podcast, and welcome to the monthly meta. Every month we get together and we have a look at two things in competitive Blood Bowl. What's legal and what's lethal. What's legal, we're going to have a look at everything that's available for Blood Bowl and whether or not you need it to be playing. Whether it's a league, tournament, or just casual, we'll cover everything out there that's available for you, and like I said, whether it's that important or not. And secondly, we will have a look at the NAF stats. So the NAF is a player association for Blood Bowl that compiles tournament results. So we get some stats and we will have a look at what's lethal, which teams are doing the best in the format at the moment. Anyway, on to what's legal. Okay, we kind of touched on this last time, but I think it's important that we cover it again. This is ways to play Blood Bowl, because actually, if you're just starting out in Blood Bowl, you're going to need to know this as well. So the current rules, actual Blood Bowl as it stands right now, Blood Bowl 2020, there's tabletop. Actually, grabbing your minis and playing with a friend on a pitch is undoubtedly the best way to play. And there's a couple of other ways to play this edition of rule set as well. The second is Fumble. Now, if you want to know more about Fumble, just have a look. There's some videos of us playing it on the channel, or just go to the Fumble website, I'll link it below, and get some games in. It is a JavaScript client with 64-bit graphics, and it looks deliciously retro. But it will give you exactly the Blood Bowl experience. It will do a lot of the stuff for you as well, which means it's a little bit quicker to play. It's actually a really good way to get the rules down right. However, there is a steep learning curve because there's no really any tutorial, and it can be a little bit tricky to get used to it, and you will absolutely make some misclicks, but it will be really good fun. There's no AI, this is just player versus player, and there's some cool teams on there as well as just the standard teams. Now, the third way is new over the last month, and that is Blood Bowl 3. So Blood Bowl 3 is now an upgrade on Blood Bowl 2. Don't hate me. Listen to me. Hear me out. When it comes to the rule set and teams, in a way, it's got more of the newer teams in it, but overall, it's got a lot less teams. Now, it had an incredibly bumpy start, but actually, it's up and running to quite a good place right now. But really, I'd say wait till May. And the reason for that is because they're going to rotate some seasons in, there's going to be another team released in May, and then there'll be an online ladder and some other upgrades. At the moment, it's what's called the pre-season, which quite frankly is an open beta that you have to pay for. But it is a great way to jam a bunch of Blood Bowl 2020 games. And if you want to learn how to play Blood Bowl 2020 without going tabletop, I actually think it's probably the best thing you can do right now is join a fun Discord, come and join the Bonehead Discord, come and join the Bonehead League, and just play a bunch of great games in Blood Bowl 2020 and get your head around how your teams develop. That's the best thing that it's there for. You can jam some games against the AI and explore how to develop your team, how to spend those SPPs. It's a really good way to do that. Now, if you want to play more competitively, you can use the old rule set from 2016 on Blood Bowl 2. The advantage of Blood Bowl 2 is that the online community is more veteran, like it's more experienced, it's more well built. There are more teams to play, but the rules are old, and you're going to have to unlearn some things if you start playing Blood Bowl 2. I stayed away from Blood Bowl 2 the second Blood Bowl 2020 landed because, well, I used to pass a lot with gutter runners, and you can't really do that now. However, for the rest of this video, we're going to focus primarily on tabletop. And what are you going to need if you want to play Blood Bowl on the tabletop? Well, the very first thing you're going to need is the Blood Bowl 2020 rulebook. Now, the game is not hard to pick up as you're playing it through. If you used to play the old edition, if you're just starting out, if you're just coming back, the majority of the game is really simple. There's a lot of edge cases, so there's an FAQ pack that I would definitely recommend having there. But the rulebook covers basically everything and has got 20 teams in it, 20 star players in it, and basically everything you need to get playing. Obviously, if you're joining a game, having the rulebook is going to be useful, but if you've got friends to teach you, most of it you'll be able to just pick up anyway. There are some expansions. There's two almanacs, 2021 and 2022, that basically compile all the articles and the spike magazines, which are basically your team codexes, and they compile them for the year. So actually they're quite good. So the 2021 one has got the first few in, and the 2022 one has got the Amazon and Norse almanacs in with all the team rules. plus some really great star player expanded rules. And before you start worrying, well, I just want to go and buy a team, and where do I get the rules, and I want to get a star player, Games Workshop has done an insanely good job with this, as far as I'm concerned. You pick up a box of Norse, of Amazons, you go to Forge World and you buy some star players. The rules are in the box for those teams. Not only the instructions in the box, but on the other side of the instructions is the entire roster for the team. And if the team's got special rules, it's detailed there as well. So really, all you need to do to get playing Blood Bowl is pick up the rulebook, know where the FAQ is in case you get a funny question, and then buy a team from Games Workshop. And you've got the stats ready to go. If you want to use a third-party team, then you're probably going to want to pick up the Spike magazine, because Spike magazines are just great anyway. They're just these little 30-page booklets that are all about the team, with the fluff, which is the background, with the rules for the team itself, and some cool expanded special rules for it. Normally a league, or some extra inducements, or weather tables or something. Just, it's a really cool way to kind of set the scene for that team. So if you're going to be playing Amazons, pick up the Amazon Spike. The rules are in the box, but it's more fun if you pick up the other bits too. But wait, there's more. The core rulebook has got, I think, 21 teams in it. And then if you pick up the box, you've got the rules for it, no matter what team you're picking up, which is great. But there are extra places to go. And the first of all, we've kind of mentioned them, is the Spike magazines. So there are a bunch of different Spike magazines that are out now. When a team is released, it will be normally released with a Spike magazine, and that Spike has got the background for the team, some playstyle tips and tricks, the rules for the team, and like I said, rules for playing on on the Amazon pitch in a jungle, and just cool stuff like that that you can use or not use at your leisure, basically. And they'll have the star player background and rules for that release of team as well. So Spike 11, which maintains its position in my heart as the best Spike out there, has got the rules for the Necromantic team. The Necromantic team were and are featured in the standard rulebook, but this one gives you some great star players and some great background. The Nobility and Black Orc Spike has got some rules and background for those teams, and then there's the Khorne Spike in 13, 14 was Norse, and 15 were Amazons. Now, like I said, if you go and buy a box of Khorne or Norse, the rules for those teams will be in the boxes, but for Khorne, Norse, and Amazons, if you're going to want to play them, then I would recommend picking up the Spike magazine as well. It's about £10. It's got all the rules you'll need. It's a nice little reference, and it's just, I don't know, it's a nice scene setting for your team. But there are a couple more ways to get some other teams out there, and the Teams of Legend PDF, which is linked below, is the missing teams for Blood Bowl. Now that list is getting a lot smaller now, but as it stands, we're missing Chaos Dwarves, High Elves, Tomb Kings, and Vampires. Those are the 4 teams remaining to drop into this edition of Blood Bowl. But if you've got some models for them, Games Workshop have provided the PDF with the teams for some fill-in rules for now. And actually, they're a really fun way to expand your team. You'll expand your kind of play style. There's more teams out there for you. And that brings, I think, the amount of teams we've got in Blood Bowl at the moment up to 28 or 29. And then there's one extra team that if you're joining a league or a tournament, you will probably find that they allow in there, and that is the NAF Slann team. So the Slann team is a team of space frogs, but if you've played Blood Bowl 2, then it's Kislev, right? They're the guys who jump around, and in this edition, they are so much fun. They're basically a team of human linemen that can teleport on a 3+. It is a crazy different team, really good, and I really want them to come back into Blood Bowl proper. I don't think it's ever going to happen, but as long as tournaments are allowing the NAF Slann team in there, I do recommend that you give them a go. And also, something to mention, because it's going to be useful, is if you want a star player's rules but haven't bought the model from Games Workshop, or just lost them because they come on a bit of paper, just Google them. Bomber Dribble Snot rules. And you will probably be brought to one of 2 places. One of our videos where we look at the rules, or 2, the actual PDF of the rules from Games Workshop. There's a downloads page with Blood Bowl. You've got all the rules for Teams of Legend PDF, and all the star players that they've released recently have got the PDF rules for them there, which makes it incredibly easy. Okay, so that's teams and core rules. The best thing about Blood Bowl is that it's just so much to add. Okay, Blood Bowl is like ice cream. You get a bowl, you get some ice cream in it, awesome. But wait, you can add gumdrops, sprinkles, flake, syrup. That's this part here. This is my favourite thing about Blood Bowl. Now, if you're playing in a league, probably not going to see too much of this. If you're playing in a tournament, probably not going to see too much of this. If you're playing casually or want to theme something, then this is kind of that next level. You know, Blood Bowl is all the other stuff. Real Blood Bowl players, the ones who really love the game, get excited about this stuff. There you go. Put my challenge out to you there. So, Death Zone 2021. It's the Spike 11 of rules books, right? This book had nothing required in it. It was not a book, and it is not a book that you need to buy to play. But if you love Blood Bowl, it is full of great additions. You've got more inducements, you've got different wizards, you've got drummers, there's rules for giants and mercenaries, and most importantly of all, the best way to play Blood Bowl, which is Blood Bowl 7s, which is a smaller variant. The rules for all of those are in Death Zone 2021, and it is just a fantastic expansion that, quite frankly, for the most part, is going to be optional. You're not going to see it come up too often in a tournament, and you're not going to see it come up too often in a league, but it is a great expansion with a whole bunch of fun stuff to add to Blood Bowl. Or you can play Dungeon Bowl. Now, Dungeon Bowl takes the madness of Blood Bowl and places it underground, and there are wizards and teleporters and treasure chests that explode. Dungeon Bowl is a phenomenally different game to Blood Bowl, uses the core mechanics, the core theme, but you are in a dungeon. And there are just a whole myriad of great choices to make. It is a brilliant alternative way to play. And Games Workshop do the Dungeon Bowl box set, and it's full of cool dungeon tiles and some teams. If you are going to, if you want to play in a Dungeon Bowl tournament, come down to Dorset Dungeon Bowl. There's 10 tickets left on May the 20th, Saturday, May the 20th. We're holding an event. Last year we had 40 plus players. This year we're hoping to get 50. We have posters with preset dungeons on, and it just makes it really easy. But Dungeon Bowl is such a fun and alternative way to play Blood Bowl. And it is just a classic remake of one of the best expansions for Blood Bowl back in the 80s. So it's an awesome way to play. If you want to see some Dungeon Bowl content, on our channel we've got the entire Dungeon Bowl Championship, and in about a month's time you'll start seeing Dungeon Bowl Championship 2 as we start filming it very shortly, which is cool. Now, there's a couple of extra bits you can pick up as well. There's special play cards and pitches. So when a team is released, it is normally released with a pitch. That pitch will have rules on the back of the box or in the Spike magazine. And it's just themey optional ways to do it. If you want to add an extra bit of a twist to your game, an extra bit of theme to the game, it's a cool way to do it. So, you know, you play on a sunken ship, a swamp. It's just a really cool way to add extra rules. And the special play cards are featured as an inducement in the game. They can be really swingy, but they can be really fun. Some are garbage, some are great. There's definitely a variance in there. We tend not to use the special play cards very often, but if you want to add a nice little narrative twist or just, I don't know, just add a little bit extra spice to Blood Bowl, then the special play cards are a load of fun. You don't tend to see them very often in leagues, and you don't see them ever really in tournaments because they can be really swingy. So if you kind of got a competitive scale, then actually the special play cards are over on this side. But when it comes to fun, they're also over on this side, which is really cool. And then there are some rules for referees in White Dwarf 466. The best thing about referees is if they're dead, they can't see you fouling. Okay, so we've had no new Blood Bowl releases in the last month. We've seen some star players that have come out. We've got Drawl and Dribble. We've got Puggy and the Baker Star are there. And Bryce the Slice Campbell, the flaming Ghost Rider with a chainsaw. Oh, it's just such a cool game. They are all released, and we're waiting on a couple of things left. So I think we've got a bit of an idea of what might be coming out this year. So star player models, there's still a few left from the Almanac. Ripper and the Nurgle Stars, we're waiting to see them. Grashnak Blackhoof was in the Khorne roster. And Grashnak is a bit of a sleeper star player, okay? He's strength 6, he's got awesome potential, but there's no model for him, so you don't see him very often. But actually, I think when the model drops, people might start playing him a bit more, because this rule set is brilliant. Yeah, big fan of Grashnak. I mean, we can potentially, you know, expect a team for Blood Bowl soon. The last Blood Bowl team was announced in July last year and dropped in October. It's now March, so we're looking about 6 months in. Games Workshop historically have dropped 2 teams a year, so we're kind of waiting on the next release, and We've had an Almanac this year already, but it's been a couple of years since a Death Zone, so I don't know what we're going to have. The rumour on the community is that Vampires are next and they were play tested alongside the Amazon team. But it's been a little while and we've not seen any inklings. Now, it was Adepticon this week, so we kind of, like this time last year, we saw the Norse preview. We didn't see Blood Bowl listed on Adepticon and we haven't seen any spoilers, but we got Warhammer Fest coming up in a month or so, so potentially that'll be the point at which the next Blood Bowl release will be announced. But even without any announcements, even without that, we've got nearly 30 teams of Blood Bowl and a bunch of cool star players to play. So if you're just joining Blood Bowl, there is plenty for you to explore. But if you like us and more Blood Bowl is more better, then there's some unofficial extras out there that I would definitely recommend having a look. Now, mixed team rules. If you ever wanted to combine Skaven with Dark Elves and upset your friends, we've got a rule set for you. So we host a tournament every year called Bonehead Bowl, and in that we allow you regular teams, but we also allow mixed teams. So if you come to our website, you'll find the rules for that. And it is just an absolute ton of fun. Goblins with Snotlings. There's a couple of rules in there, but it's just a great way to play a better, like a bigger collection and variety of teams. It ramps the power level up. I am not going to lie, it turns Blood Bowl up to 12, gives you way too much flexibility and freedom, but it works both ways, right? If I can take Dwarves and Elves, you can take Orcs and Skaven. So it's actually a really fun way to mix things up. And most of the time, you're not going to need any more models because you just kind of take your two favourite teams and put them together, which is not bad. Then there's the Fumble Secret League. Now, we talked about Fumble at the beginning of the episode. It is a 2D 64-bit piece of absolute magic. They've got all the standard Blood Bowl teams in there, but they also have a thing called the Secret League, and the Secret League's got about 80 experimental teams in there, from giant teams to tree man teams to squig teams to all kinds of great stuff. They're in there. They're not all balanced beautifully, but they are great fun to play, and we've done a lot of stuff with secret teams over the years because they're just it's just dumb and absolute brilliant fun. In fact, we're hoping to get some Secret League stuff to the tabletop later this year because it is just more Blood Bowl, right? It's just more stuff to play. So if you're looking for more challenges and different games, then actually mixed teams are great. On Fumble, you've got the Secret League, and you can play it online as well. And then there's other variants. We've already talked about Sevens, which is my favourite way to play. We've already talked about Dungeon Bowl, which is just an awesome, awesome one-off or event game. Oh, man, it's just so much fun. Then there's a couple more kicking out there. So on the NAF pages, there's Street Bowl, which is a standard Blood Bowl pitch, but without the wide zones because it's played in the street. There's Beach Bowl, which is similar to Sevens, but is basically the Blood Bowl equivalent of that scene in every Top Gun movie. Then you got 4-player variants, so Death Bowl. We played a Death Bowl Sevens game the other month, and it's got much more of a board game vibe to it, but it is just madness. I wholeheartedly recommend taking Squigs and then checking out our video. And there's Tunnel Bowl as well, which is a variant that we brewed up a couple of years ago that is a standard Blood Bowl pitch or a standard Blood Bowl Sevens pitch with terrain put on it to block squares. It's kind of a lazy way to get that dungeon experience, creates different running lanes. It's just a cool way to change up the pitch. Okay, so that's everything that's legal in Blood Bowl and a little bit more. Now we're going to have a look at what's lethal. Now, this is compiled from the tournaments that have been reported to the NAF over the last month, and I've robbed the data from a tableau put together by Mike Davies, so a massive thank you to him. Every month he updates it. Every month we use the results to figure out which teams are doing the best in Blood Bowl. So we're going to have a look at two things now. We're going to have a look at which teams have been winning the most and which teams have been the most popular, with an idea that actually you should know what to expect if you're going to a Blood Bowl tournament anytime soon. Okay, so starting from the bottom of the teams that have been winning recently, we are going to go to spot 29 is Goblins, down one spot. Goblins have had a very terrible time of it in competitive Blood Bowl. They've spiked a couple. They've won a couple of tournaments. They've won at least one of our tournaments, which was pretty cool. But they've dropped down to a win percentage of 39% in the last period. Now, there's a couple of things to note here when it comes to Goblins. They got some great star players in the most recent Almanac. Ripper is fantastic. Nobbler, Scrapper, all really useful pieces of kit for Goblins. It's great to see them back. However, the NAF World Cup rules doesn't allow any of the star players since the Amazon spike, so there's going to be quite a lot of star players that aren't even available. So that's going to continue hurting Goblins. If you are going to a tournament using the NAF rule set, you won't be able to use a lot of the new releases from Games Workshop. So I think we might see Goblins maybe take a bit of a hit with that over the next kind of few months while people prep for the World Cup. So definitely one to watch out for. If you're going to a non-NAF tournament or just a regular NAF tournament that isn't worried about the World Cup rule sets, Ripper, Nobbler, Scrapper, a lot of fun, and we should see Goblins take a little bit of a jump up. Down 3 spots is Ogres at 40%. I mean, they've had Bomber Dribble Snot doing some good work. They've now got Cindy as well. Again, everything I just said about star players is definitely to be considered. Ogres have got a good... They've got a good spread, so actually Ogres should be winning a little bit more than that. So they're sitting outside of the Goldilocks zone. The Goldilocks zone being 45% win rate to 55% win rate. That's kind of where you expect teams to be. And those guys dropping out over the last month is not great. Now we've got 3 teams at 44% here. We've got Vampires dropping down this month, 8 spots down to 27. Chaos up a bit and Nurgle up a bit, all sitting there at 44% win rate. Now Vampires are a really difficult team to manage, but very similar to Goblins. They've spiked a few results. They did Thrud Bowl last year where they just crushed everyone. Depending on the rule set, Vampires can be really, really good. If Vampires have got a skinny skill set, then actually they do struggle at events. Chaos and Nurgle are actually very similar. Tournaments with lots of skills and skill stacking, Chaos and Nurgle and Vampires going to do really well. If your skill set, your tier system doesn't benefit that, then actually competitive tournaments are going to be tough for those teams. 45% win rate. We've got Halflings down a spot, Snotlings up a spot, and Black Orcs down a spot as well. So actually just sitting on the bottom edge of the Goldilocks zone. I mean, not a lot of movement with any of those teams. They are consistently in the bottom third of Blood Bowl from a competitive point of view. Snotlings and Halflings, they're tier 3. They're not supposed to be in the most winning teams of Blood Bowl. And Black Orcs get a lot of games played, but they don't have a cheeky Edge 2+ scoring threat. The best they've got is Scrapper now. And so I'm hoping that if not a lot of tournaments use the World Cup rule set, then we'll see a lot of Scrapper action and we may be able to tweak that Black Orc win percentage up. But at 45% and a tier 2 team, that's not too far off where we expect them to be. Dwarves. This is huge this week. This month. Oh, I wish I could do this weekly. Right, Dwarves. Dwarves have got the internal and integral advantage with a bunch of tackle everywhere. And when you've got a lot of teams that are performing well in the stunty zone or the dodgy zone, so I'm looking at you, Amazons, Underworld, Skaven, Lizardmen, when those teams are popular, Dwarves can feed on them. So it's really interesting to see them actually down 9 spots from 12th last month here. Win percentage of 46%, still 400 games played, but actually Dwarves ticking down a bit. That's quite interesting to see. Now they've got access now to Cindy, Pie Whistle, so you'll see a lot of tournaments I think that makes Dwarves a little bit more spicy, because you'll be able to take that bomber in there without really giving anything up for Dwarves. So I wouldn't be surprised if we didn't see the Dwarf win percentage tick up a bit and Dwarves go back to kind of the top half of the table. And now to the middle, up 6 spots, we've got Imperial Nobility at 46% win rate. We've got Norse taking a massive loss this month, so they've dropped from 9th to 19th. Now a 47% win rate is still very reasonable. And we kind of see this with newer teams. There's a release hangover. Team gets released, and it's very exciting. They don't get taken to tournaments very often because people want to explore with them. They want to get them painted. A team comes out, and actually there's a 3-month period where you start to see a slight increase in numbers, but not a huge amount. And then you see a massive spike in the numbers of teams being run at tournament, and kind of 3 to 4 to 5 to 6 months after that release. During that period, the win rate decreases as players kind of figure out how it works. Then it kind of plateaus out. Interestingly enough, we've seen Norse spike hard and high, and now they've dropped back again. So I wouldn't be surprised if we're kind of getting a little bit more play out of Norse now, more people taking them, and you're going to get to the point where it kind of balances out a bit. So even though Norse are hitting a 47% win rate, I wouldn't be surprised to see them spike a little bit over the next month. But hey, even 19 is not a bad space to be. Down 1 spot is Chaos Renegades, who have consistently overperformed. Now, they're sitting in the middle. They're a tier 2 team, but they're a challenging tier 2 team. I'm actually quite excited about the Chaos Renegade and OWA roster for the World Cup. I think they've got some nice inroads there. But Renegades do a great job, and they are just one of the most fun teams in Blood Bowl. As we see them now on Blood Bowl 3, I think there's a lot more opportunity for people to get more reps with them and to get better with them. So that's great to see. Down 9 spot is Necro, and 10 spots are Chaos Dwarves. Now, both of them are sitting bang in the middle at 50%, which is perfect, right? That's just perfection. They've taken a big loss, both of them. It's interesting to see. I can't really explain Necromantic. I can't explain Necromantic. Nothing's changed with them. The meta's not massively shifted. So that's an interesting one. Chaos Dwarves, seeing them drop a huge amount of spots, as well as Dwarfs, is really interesting. Because at the moment, you kind of expect to see tier 1 teams used more as people start ramping up for the World Cup. And also, we kind of expect to see Amazons hitting the pitch regularly now, as they're kind of coming out of that hibernation mode of the new release where everyone's building them, painting them. They're going to start playing them a lot now, so we should see Chaos Dwarf as well. Again, another team with integral tackle, maybe start to spike up a bit. Lizards bang in the middle there at 15 and at 50%. They're probably the most balanced team in competitive Blood Bowl. Who knew? Interesting about Lizards, their star player access isn't particularly great. Glottal Stop is awesome, but a huge amount of the TV. They've got the potential to take Estelle, but not if you're using the World Cup rules. And if you're using the Games Workshop match play rules with Drool and Dribble, you can't actually take them at tier 1. So when it comes to Lizards, you tend to have to run vanilla Lizards quite frequently. But hey, 15th and 50% is bang on. Elven Union dropped a massive chunk this time, down 11 spots to 50%. Not a lot of games played with Elven Union. Orcs up 5 spots to 51%. Now, Orcs have had an interesting journey in this edition of Blood Bowl. They got Animosity, their big and blockers got faster, and then their tier got changed from tier 1 to tier 2. Now, the tier system is there to incentivize taking a team, not necessarily to balance it, but actually you've got those tier 2 teams that are potentially more challenging, and actually in most tournaments a tier 1 team will get X skills and a tier 2 team will get X plus 2 skills. It's a way to incentivize not every coach to always take Dark Elves and Wood Elves like the Dwarves like they did in the last edition. So actually I like that tier system. Where Orcs got bumped from tier 1 to tier 2, there's definitely more of an incentive there. They get a couple more skills, they don't need a lot of skills, and they've got access to Bomber Dribble Snot, so it's a pretty good time to be an Orc coach. And again, another team I think has a really good roster for the NAF World Cup. Down 2 spots we got Khorne. I mean, Khorne are a brilliant fun team. They I say they're glass cannons, they're not glass cannons. Norse are glass cannons. Khorne are just goblins with better players. They will frenzy themselves off a little bit less than they frenzy you off. So Khorne, really good and really fun. Sitting square at 11 is the best team in Blood Bowl, which is Skaven. 52% win rate, nearly 500 games played. So actually, I think we can say that Skaven are fair and balanced. Okay, so top 10 times, so top 10 most winning teams over the last period is... up 12 spots, we've flipping got Humans. Now, we just talked about Orcs and how they got their tier bumped. Actually, Humans are bang on in the same position, but they're just kind of a slightly faster team. So Humans doing really well, 52% win rate, into the top 10. Down 2 spots is Undead with a 53% win rate. Undead have been consistently one of the top 10 teams in Blood Bowl 2020. They've got a lot of everything. They need skills, so if you're in a tournament environment where you've got a decent skill package, Undead can perform brilliantly. Another team that doesn't have a great selection of stars to take, but really all they need is Wilhelm Chaney. There's a lot of cool rosters there for Undead, and I think the future for them is pretty bright. Up 12 spots are my Space Frogs. So the Slann team or the Kislev team are just a really unique team. They're absolutely a ton of fun to play. The Punga team looks amazing. The Fanath team looks amazing. And I'm hoping that one day Games Workshop will bring them back, bring back the Space Frogs, or bring them back as Kislev, or I don't know, reimagine them as a Slaanesh team, because actually their rule set is really fun and it adds a lot to Blood Bowl, and they've spiked it this month. 53% win rate, only 82 games played, but that means like 50 of them were won, so good job Slann coaches. Down 2 spots, we've got Dark Elves with a 53% win rate as well. Now, Dark Elves, again, another team that's just been consistently in the top 10 teams for Blood Bowl 2020. They are not a pass-heavy offense, so this edition didn't massively change a huge amount of how they played. they're just great. I have nothing else to add when it comes to Dark Elves. Wood Elves, however, kind of went into this edition a little bit trash and worked their way up. They've dropped 4 spots this time because they were up to the top 5 of the last period. Now they're down into 6th place with a 54% win rate, proving that actually Wood Elves, even though Leap got nerfed, even though Passing got nerfed, Wood Elves still have the capacity to just always be in the game, and that's one of the most fun things about the Wood Elf team. They are fragile, you're going to get murdered, but as long as you've got 5 elves, you can still score a touchdown, and ultimately touchdowns are what you need. Right, tick it up a bit, we've got Tomb Kings in 5th place at 55% win rate. I've got to say, Tomb Kings have won this edition of Blood Bowl in every way, shape or form. They're a tier 2 team with no agility and no speed, and coaches are taking them. They're popular. Look at that. There's more Tomb Kings games in the last month than there has been Wood Elf games, and they're slightly better at winning. So it's a brilliant system for them to be in, and I am really enjoying seeing the Tomb Kings overperform. Another and the last team of legend is High Elves, who are bounced back up into the top 5. So High Elves in this edition have been in the top few spots for most of it. They dropped out last month. They're back in over the last period, 56% win rate. So we're actually just ticking outside of the Goldilocks zone, and this next team surprises me probably more than any. And it's OWA. OWA came into this edition with hardly any games being played, and none of them were really any good. But actually, if you know how to use this team, and you've got a good skill set, them being a tier 2 team, then it can actually turn from the B team of Blood Bowl into the A team of Blood Bowl, complete with people who are scared of flying. OWA are a really fun and unique team, and very much like Chaos Renegades have got a nice tasty World Cup roster, so look for them to be, look for them to continue doing well over the next couple of months, as a lot of places use the World Cup system, but also being on Blood Bowl 3 now, it means that players can get a ton of games in with them. So actually, as they stand right now, coaches are going to get more reps, they're going to have better ideas of the best way to play them. And as we talked about the kind of release hangover, we're seeing this spike in Amazon games and win rate. So I kind of said there's a period of not a lot, and then lots of games, and then it plateaus out. Well, within that, there is this little spike where they land, and then they do rubbish for a bit because no one really knows how to run them. Then coaches learn how to run them, and they get the advantage against coaches who don't know how to play against them. That's the period that we're in with Amazons, and we've just seen this with Norse. Norse came in, didn't really do any different, then they started to play really well, and then they dropped back out again because you went through that cycle, and we're seeing that cycle here with Amazons now. The team lands, the coaches who are running them learn how to win with them. Then it takes a little bit of time for other coaches to play against them to learn how to defeat them again. So Amazon spiking there into top 2. I mean, I'm not going to lie, the Amazon roster is a very potent one. And in this format of Blood Bowl, they've got a lot of tools. Drawl and Dribble Amazon roster is fantastic. We saw an Estelle Amazon roster do brilliantly at our last tournament as well. And just quite frankly, the fact that the whole team has got dodge is a massive benefit to not being murdered and occasionally trying to move around. And those 2 strength 4 blockers are very tasty indeed. And they've got thrower with on the ball. It's a very cool team. I like that it's here. Amazons were always really potent in the last edition. This team switcheroo has kept them potent, but in a different way. So actually, it's a refreshing way to lose to a dodge-heavy team. And then the number 1 spot, as requested by everybody, is Underworld. Underworld have stayed in the top spot. They came into this edition with a 65% win rate, and they've dropped down to 59, which is getting better, but still a little bit obscene. Anyway, those are the top 10 teams in competitive Blood Bowl right now. What we're going to do is we're going to switch over and have a look at the most popular. Okay, so the teams that have been the most popular over the last month, starting at the bottom, we've got Vampires at 29. Now, this is probably not going to surprise anybody. The rumours are that Vampires are getting redone by Games Workshop, so there's a lot of reticence to use them at the moment because you don't want to practice playing a team that's going to get changed. And also, I think probably the biggest thing that hits Vampires is that there's no Games Workshop team for them, so if you want to play them, you have to track down a third-party team. And with a potential redo of the roster, tracking down a third-party team for Games Workshop to re-release them with I don't know, something else like a beer bore in it, is not the most exciting thing. However, what I will say is that vampires in their current edition are a really fun and unique challenge to do it. So if you've got some models, definitely worth running them out. If you want to get some models, we've got a top 5 video that features the best third-party vampire teams. Vampires are a very cool team to run, very unique, and definitely worth getting out there. Slann at 28, not surprised to see them at the bottom again. As an unofficial team with official models, it sits in the kind of similar space to vampires. OWA deserves better. Now, doing a really good job of winning games, but not playing too many of them. Elven Union, Nurgle, and High Elves are the next teams on the roster. High Elves kind of sit in the same space as vampires when it comes to picking up a team and playing with it. You need to basically get a third-party team or convert your own, and as they are sitting in the Team of Legends, we don't know what the roster is going to look like in the future for them. Elven Union deserve more games. They're a great roster, and Nurgle are a really interesting one. 44% win rate. Nurgle are the kind of team that you want to run in League. And then by season 3 of your league, that Nurgle team is brutal because you've got all the skills you need and all the skills you want. And actually, when it comes to tournament play, Nurgle aren't that enticing, even though the Games Workshop models are really nice. We've got Imperial Nobility at 23rd. I'm surprised we don't see a little bit more of the Imperial Nobility roster. Again, I guess it sits in that tier 2 zone of needing a little bit more than you normally get from a tournament point of view, but having run them myself, I actually think they're a brilliant team. This is interesting. Next, we've got Amazons at 22. So we saw a bit of a boom and a bit of a bust with the amount of teams that are being played by Amazons. Now, we just talked about bringing a team to the tournament and that whole kind of cycle of waiting to paint, learning how to play, learning how to win, then learning how to beat them. And I'm surprised we're not seeing more Amazon rosters at the moment, given that ogres are actually a little bit more popular. Now, to be fair, ogres are a ton of fun at tournaments because you've got some great star players to kind of build your roster around, or you just go full Bonehead and smash things. Okay, mid-table of popularity, we've got Chaos at 20, Goblin up a couple of spots at 19, Snotlings up 4 spots at 18, Chaos Renegades down a little bit at 17, Wood Elves down a little bit of popularity at 16, Tomb Kings a little bit more popular there, still, I mean, nearly 250 games played. Khorne down a few spots, Norse at 13, Black Orcs at 294 games, and 296 games Underworld. So Black Orcs we expect to see quite a lot of because it's a starter team. Underworld we expect to see quite a lot of because it's a very good team. Norse, Khorne, Tomb Kings, Wood Elves, Chaos Renegades, Snotlings, Goblins, they've all got really fun and unique ways to play. So even though they're not the most popular teams, actually they give a really good challenge, and you can kind of become a very dedicated Norse team, or Norse player, or a very dedicated Goblin or Renegades player, because the way they play is just actually very different, very challenging, and incredibly rewarding as well. So, mid-table, top fun. And you come to the top 10, and interestingly, we've got Halflings in the top 10 spot. I mean, everything we just said about ogres is very much true of halflings. Halflings are the bread in which you make the juiciest of sandwiches. Halflings are a very low-cost team, which in tournaments means star players. So you can take a full-on ogre team, and you can fit Griffin there. But when it comes to halflings, you take a halfling team, and you can fit Griffin there, and then you can fit probably Carla in there. Maybe the new Baker star player. Maybe you want to take Puggy. Maybe you want to take Rumbelow or Carla. Maybe you might even have enough money to fit Morgan there. Halflings are built to run star players, and they're a lot of fun for that as well. So, in the 300 games region, we've got Chaos Dwarves as well, and then Humans at 8. Necro stayed exactly where they want to be at 7. Dwarves are a little less popular at the moment, but all of these teams between 300 and 400 games, which is a ton of Blood Bowl over the last month. Dwarves seeing a little less popular and winning a lot less is interesting. And I don't know if I don't mind it. It's interesting to see Chaos Dwarves are more popular. There's just some interesting stuff going on here. I thought we'd see more Amazons, and I would therefore expect to see more Dwarves and more Chaos Dwarves. So maybe we'll see a bit of an ebb and flow where Amazons actually start playing a little bit more because they're playing a lot better, and we'll see kind of the meta shift towards, well, I might as well just take Chaos Dwarves and Dwarves then, because I'm going to murder Hack Phlegm, I'm going to murder Dodge Phlegm. It's going to be a ton of fun. Right, top 5 time, we've got Lizards down 3 spots. 457 games played. Dark Elves up 1 spot. Skaven up 1 spot, nearly at 500, up 4 spots. Undead at 577 games, and our mad lads, the Orcs, the tier 2 kings, are the most popular team in Blood Bowl right now. If you look at that top 10, you can build a really fun and entertaining and competitive roster for each of these teams. Halflings is an interesting one to see in there, but like I kind of said about the kind of middle spot, every one of those rosters is a lot of fun, and when you're running Halflings, you get some really cool toys to play with, and they can win really well. But if not, actually, you get to take 2 of your favorite star players and have them on the pitch, and that's a lot of fun there. So in the top 10 teams, Undead and Dark Elves are the 2 most popular and the 2 most winning of that spot, and none of it really surprises me. I always find it fun to check in on the top 10 teams of all time for Blood Bowl 2020 every now and again, and I figured now would be a good time to do that. Elven Union at 10. Dwarf have actually dropped 3 spots all time, down to 9. Undead up 2 spots to 8. Chaos Dwarves up 2 spots to 7, and Wood Elves up 1 spot to 6. So we're looking at 52% win rate for those teams and a 53% win rate for Wood Elves. Ever so slightly in front of Wood Elves are the Dark Elf team, no movement there. Then you've got Tomb Kings, who have managed to maintain spot 4 for the entire period of Blood Bowl 2020. Amazons at 3 is really cool to see. Now, that includes the old style Amazons and the new style Amazons. Their results are all together. So we are not seeing that the current format, the current styling of Amazons has shifted them up or down yet. Now, we've seen that actually they spiked and they can perform very, very well in a certain period of time, but overall it's not affected them. Good to see Wood Elves clawing up again. I mean, these are just an absolutely fantastic mix of teams, and the top 2 spots again haven't changed. High Elves at 55.9. I think that's dropped ever so slightly. They are again falling a little bit more into that Goldilocks zone, and Underworld down from 65%, which was the horror story of Blood Bowl, down to 59.9%. Still 4% clear of the next best team, and, 5% clear of where we kind of want them to be. But actually, it's coming into line a lot better. Okay, that covers up what's lethal in Blood Bowl. Hopefully, we've given you a good idea of what's popular and what's powerful right now in competitive Blood Bowl. And I think the great thing to take away here is when going through these rosters, there are very few, if any, teams you look at and go, nah, I don't really want to run that, can't see the fun in that. All of these teams are a lot of fun, and all of them can win a lot, and it's really fun to see the teams ebb and flow as the month goes on, because as meta possible as Blood Bowl is, any bunch of coaches can bring any bunch of teams to a tournament, and you can spike it and win, and any team can genuinely win. Most tournaments are 3-4 games of Blood Bowl. That's not a lot of wins for you to take top spot. So awesome to see. A couple of teams lying outside in the percentage. Goblins, I can see ebbing their way back in, and Underworld eventually will tick down to that 55% spot. But really cool to see, and hopefully you've enjoyed the video and all the details within. Anyway, let me know what you think. Let me know if you've got any comments. Let me know if there are any teams on there you really don't want to play or really do want to play. And we'll be back again soon with more Blood Bowl content. Happy blocking. Thanks very much for watching. We really appreciate your support. If you want to support the channel even further, please like and subscribe. It really does help us out. Or come join us on YouTube Members or in Patreon, where you can get exclusive access to some content, some loot, early access to basically everything we do, as well as regular competitions. Or you can pick up some Bonehead Podcast loot either on our website at boneheadpodcast.com. We've got the Dungeon Bowl things, we've got tokens and stuff like that, or on our Spreadshirt site as well. Everything you do just helps us make more content and hopefully do it of better quality. Anyway, thank you very much for watching. Happy blocking.